mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Hey, check out my new tag team, baby, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, Jimmy, don't forget to tell them about Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast.
Well, you know what, I would, but you already did it.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh. With Monty and Pharaoh. The Monty and Pharaoh Show. Monty and Pharaoh, bro.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
And you're watching the Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 Monty and Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and Pharaoh.
The Monty and the Pharaoh Show.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
To the Monty and the Pharaoh Show. And it's Monty and the Pharaoh, baby.
Watching Monty and the Pharaoh.
With Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, what a run.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, cut the fucking music. When you want the best in professional wrestling, Long Island, there's only one place you're going to get it, right here.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best. That, my friends, is just incredible. Monty and the Pharaoh.
You've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, and MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff, and we gonna rock it.
Straight to the top. We're living this life, not just dreaming it, we're doing it for real. Straight to the top. Working hard every day just to live out that tower.
All right, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast out of Indie Music TV, here out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. At the board is our super producer, Matt. Hello. You know they can't hear him on the mic, right?
Full of energy.
And by the way, if people didn't know, this is the Monty and the Pharaoh Show.
By the way.
To the right is the star of the show, Jimmy Farrow. Jimmy, how are you, bud?
Very good, partner. Back again for another faberific week.
Yeah, you sound really chipper today, man.
I'm juiced. I've had a lot of good fucking wine this afternoon.
What time did you sleep till today?
Sleep? What's that? I don't sleep.
No sleep for the weary?
I have more cats than you have. What?
Bro, so much shit going on in the world right now, man.
Yeah.
People not making money, but guess what?
What?
Baseball's back July 24th. What are you thinking?
Watch this. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Yay. Look, I miss baseball. I do. I would love to see baseball games, but I got to admit, I'm very weirded out by the prospect of them playing in front of an empty stadium. We've already been weirded out. Wrestling gave us the first heads up that things would be different when it came to professional entertainment nowadays, post-corona, or we can't even say post-corona because it's still going on. But it's going to be very bizarre to watch a baseball game with nobody in the crowd. I guess I'll have a fuller opinion of it when it happens.
Well, all I keep thinking about are the Yankees, right? It's a 60-game season. They
Right.
usually start like shit, even though they got a great team.
Right.
So we'll be out of it before we even get a chance to win. We'll be like 0-10
No, we won't.
with 50 games to go.
No, I have enough faith in Aaron Boone to keep them focused. I don't think that they'll go into too big of a tailspin. We have lost Domingo Herman for the season. I do know that. He's not going to be available. Because
Is Judge ready to play?
I'm not sure about Judge, but you know what? The next hiccup could be the next surgery for Judge.
Who gives a shit? They're all money hungry anyway.
Yeah, well,
Fuck 'em
you've
all.
always got that problem.
Anyway, the Monty and the Pharaoh Show would like to thank the band that sings the theme song for Monty and the Pharaoh, Aqua Cherry. The theme song is Straight to the Top. You could also catch their other songs, Yes, Yes, Forever, and Seasons. Aqua Cherry's music can be found on Spotify, iTunes, Reverb Nation, or where music is sold. Also, who sings the outro song is the band from Long Island, Wisteria Hall.
That sounds familiar.
With the lead vocals of our own Jimmy Farrow, along with his partner Bart Griggs.
Sounds familiar.
Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. And you can find their music on Spotify, iTunes, and Reverb Nation. You know,
Nice.
we all know we have Tito Santana in studio,
Yeah.
but dude, you're more of a star than Tito, I think, at this point.
That's absolutely absurd.
You're on
Yeah,
Long
everyone
Island's
else is
#1
saying
pro
ridiculous.
wrestling
This is
broadcast. You're a lead singer.
Yeah, but I can't do a back body drop.
Hold on.
What?
Monty Nefaro could be seen on YouTube, Facebook Live on the Monty Nefaro homepage, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Twitch TV on the Monty and Nefaro page, RTF Sports Network every Friday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.
On the drive.
Their drive time show. And if you get bored of that, you can catch us on Monday on RTF Sports Network at 10 a.m. to 11.
Oh, another day.
Hold on.
Wow.
I'm not done.
What do you mean?
Channel 115 every Tuesday from 8:30 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
And for the early risers, 6 a.m. to 6:30. You'll be catching Tito on the upcoming show.
I still get the show.
You do?
Yeah, I switched services, as you know. I won't get into particulars, but I still get it.
Are you gonna be able? You gonna be able to catch us on CBS when we start there?
That would be a big resounding fuck yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah,
Because I don't want to hear you screaming at me.
What? Oh yeah, that would be like me. I slept through the whole thing.
Jimmy and I would like to take a moment to show respect for the people who have lost their lives and the people who are in the front lines during this time. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Hall of Famer Tito Santana about to be in studio. But guess what?
What?
We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Wow, how dramatic. Be right back.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, and I would like to welcome aboard Hall of Famer, superstar, Mr. Tito Santana. Tito, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. You guys have made me feel so good. When I got invited, I thought I was going back to the old dumpster place that you guys had. You know, I said, man, these guys have no respect for wrestlers. And now that I'm in this new studio, God, I feel like I'm somebody now.
You know, coming from a Hall of Famer, coming to this broadcast studio, I totally understand what you're saying. But I don't know if the place was a dumpster. It was close, but whatever. It was close. Anyway, I'm going to turn you over to the Pharaoh. Pharaoh is going to do a little shtick on you, Tito, and then we're ready to go have a little question and answer, and let's have a little fun, all right?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's esteemed guest on Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, we have Merced Solis, born May 10th, 1953, better known by the ring
Why are
name.
you giving the guy's age out?
I gave the birth date. For those of you who know how to add, figure it out for yourselves. Anyway.
Jeez.
He's known as Tito Santana, and if your name's Jesse Ventura, it's Chico Santana, but that's a whole nother story. Nice job, Jesse. Hey, two-time WWF Intercontinental Champion, twice held the WWF Tag Team Champion, 1989 King of the Ring tournament winner. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the very first match in WrestleMania history.
Absolutely.
And of course...
Little quick trivia. Who do you wrestle?
Oh, what do you mean? Playboy Buddy Rose under a mask. What's your problem?
The Executioner.
No, Playboy Buddy Rose under a mask.
Unfair.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
he's nodding. Would you let me finish the shtick?
All right, sorry.
Anyway, I think the shtick is finished basically with the bottom line is that this is the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, our junior high and high school worst nightmare, the great Tito Santana.
All right, baby, all right. Yes! Yes!
We should explain real quick to the audience at home why the great Tito Santana is our junior high school worst nightmare.
Go have at it. Go
You
have
want
it.
me to have at it?
Have at it.
Well, once upon a time, I was on the bus stop and I was talking pro wrestling, and he comes over and starts making fun of me. What is that crap you're watching? I get him into wrestling. He decides, why do you root for the good guys? He gets me into the bad guys. Okay, fine. Valentine for me, Morocco for you. Fantastic. Well, Here comes Pedro Morales. Now, we didn't realize during the 70s how great Pedro was. Pedro returns during the 80s and tortures us by torturing our guys and keeping the Intercontinental belt, yada, yada, yada. We finally get past Pedro. We take a big wrestling, nerdy sigh of relief. And along comes Tito to torture us with Valentine and Morocco.
Yes,
so that's the story, folks. That's the story. Did I sum that up all right?
You summed it up perfectly.
Okay?
You summed it up
perfectly. Brother? On all things aside, it is awesome to have you. What's this about COVID?
Thank you so much. Are you asking me about my experience with
please.
COVID?
Absolutely.
Fill the fans in what happened since last time we seen you.
I was teaching from home. I had just, we had, because I'm a middle school teacher, and we had just left the school setting, and we were doing virtual teaching at home. And about the second week at home, I just started feeling really weak and having all kinds of fevers at night. Wake up, about 4 nights in a row, just sweating, and just soaking wet. And then I lost the taste and smell, and ended up losing 20 pounds. I was down for 2 weeks and ended up losing about 20 pounds. And let me tell you, for those of you that don't believe that you think it's a flu, it's a lot more than a flu. I just hope that you guys don't experience, and how many people have we lost?
Yeah.
It's something to take serious.
Can you break it down for the fortunate folks who've not had COVID, the difference between a flu, which we've all had in our lives,
I never had
and
the
this?
flu.
You never had the flu?
Never had the flu.
Wow, Mike, you are a pinnacle of health. How about compare it to the flu? I know I've had the flu. I mean, compare it to the flu. I mean, what?
Well, there's no comparison.
Okay.
I had the flu. I never lost 20 pounds.
Right.
I wasn't out for 2 weeks. My wife says that I wasn't making any sense. I couldn't put sentences together, and I don't even remember that. And
wow.
Were you confined at home, or did you have to be admitted?
No, I was lucky enough that I guess maybe the fact that, because I had been working out pretty good, pretty steady, and I think that's what really helped me. I was in good physical shape, and I was able to stay home, and I made it. After 2 weeks, I started feeling better, and even after 2 weeks, after about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I went down, because I have a gym in my house, and I started lifting, and I had probably lost 80% of my strength. I couldn't. I just had a hard time just lifting the bar.
Just functioning.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it was.
Well, thank God you're okay. I mean,
thank you.
Thank God. You wrote a book. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, the book is it's about my life, and came from Jesse the Body. The title came from him. Don't call me Chico, and Jesse the Body would tell you that. I know that people have asked him who would he want to wrestle if he had to wrestle anybody, and he'd always say Tito Santana would be the guy that I would pick, because we used to have great matches, and Jesse, as you guys know, was a great performer. He would get in the ring and he'd have the people ready to kill him, and we wouldn't even touch for 10 minutes. And so I would go to arenas and people would holler, "Hey, Chico," and I would kind of get a little pissed off. That's a little disrespect. I felt like they were making fun of me. And one day I was watching, I happened to be wake up in a hotel room watching, and I channel surfing, and I saw our wrestling show, and I see Jesse the Body doing the commentating, and that's the first time that I realized that Jesse was calling me Chico on the air, and I said, that's the reason the fans are calling me Chico. It was not really an insult, they just were picking it up from Jesse, and these were friends that liked Tito Santana, and then I started accepting Chico.
Right. So I've had the opportunity to read the book, right? I was waiting for the summer, and of course coronavirus ruins it for everybody. How's the feedback on the book, and what can a fan expect from your book?
Well, it's about 400 pages.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it's a big book, and and I start talking about my life when I grew up. Migrant workers, I started working in the fields when I was 7, and how I got involved in sports, how my 8th grade gym teacher got me into sports, and from there I went to getting a football scholarship, and then I ended up meeting Tully Blanchard at West Texas State, and he got me involved in professional wrestling. And as a matter of fact, the $1 Million Man, myself and Tully Blanchard were on the same team, at the same time. Right. And then from there, I went and played a little bit of professional football, and then I started wrestling in 1977, and the rest is history. And I end up talking about, my family now, and how I got into teaching, and it's my whole life story.
Are you proud of it?
I'm really proud of it. Yeah, it's a good read. I've got a lot of great feedback from people who have read it, and it kind of makes me feel good.
Did you have a ghostwriter helping you, or did you do this entirely on your own?
No. I had a bunch of notes that I had been taking, throughout, but I had somebody that
of course
helped me put it together.
How long did it take you to write the entire book?
Probably it took us about 1.5 years to complete the book.
Okay. Are you aware that Tully is currently doing some stuff in AEW, and did you ever have any thoughts of yourself possibly ever dipping your toes back into, Vince's show for a segment or?
No, I when I left, I left it, the sacrifice that we put in being on the road, and not being around and raising my kids and watching them grow up. Now that I'm around and I have grandchildren and watching them as babies, and I can see everything that I missed. I have had no desire since I left in 1993 to go back on the road. Those guys that that are on the road all the time.
What if you were contacted for a guest spot to come in one time, just to be on camera for a particular segment for something?
Oh yeah, I mean I think it's been about 4 or 5 years when they asked me to come do a Raw and introduce Alberto Del Rio,
Nice.
I came in, I did it, but I found that it was so different because they gave me a sheet of paper and I had to memorize the introduction, When I got into wrestling, it was all, talking from the heart,
Right.
We would just create our own stories.
How
all
difficult?
of a sudden I have a script that I have to read.
How difficult was that?
It was difficult, and I was nervous, and I just rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it,
right?
And I think I did it okay, but
right,
it's not like it used to be.
Yeah, it's not like you're doing a commercial with the Pharaoh.
Not exactly. Yeah.
There you go. If I can move over to what you were one of the first guests on Piper's Pit after winning the Intercontinental title. The theme, of course, was Piper attacking your Latino heritage. Do either of you have any trepidation about that segment? Clearly you couldn't get away with that stuff in today. You know how sensitive everything is today. Any trepidation when you guys were doing that segment?
No, because wrestling was a work, and Vince had already kind of exposed the business by then. And whenever somebody like Roddy Piper would insult you, it would help you get over, So it was it was just I knew that Piper kind of respected me and I respected him, and we were just trying to help each other, and who was better than Piper, on the mic? I mean,
right.
The guy was fantastic.
Is he the greatest heel in the history of this business when he was on top of his game?
If not the greatest, I would say he was one of the greatest. I mean, here's a guy that's not as big as I was, and wrestled everybody much bigger than him, and you didn't see him get beat too much, and he wouldn't go down to, you wouldn't knock him down, on the mat, very often, so, and who worked the fans better than Roddy Piper?
Roddy Piper legitimately tough behind the scenes in real life?
I think he was. I heard some stories where I think he was a boxer, and he was a stand-up guy. I don't think he backed down in real life to too many guys.
I know you don't watch wrestling, but in the last 2 weeks, a lot of pro wrestlers are getting called out for sexual harassment.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a guy, gentleman Jack Gallagher. Most recently, an indie wrestler, Candy Cartwright, has called out Matt Riddle, who's coming into his own in the WWE.
He's just debuting on SmackDown recently, and all of a sudden this comes out. Go on, Mike.
Joey Ryan, Marty Scurll, and recently Terry Runnels. I don't know if you remember Terry Runnels at all. She called out Brock Lesnar for some sexual harassment. Has the industry always been like this, Tino? Is it always been this male-dominated sexual harassment type of industry, or things have just changed?
Well, I don't know what it's like there today. I mean, if you've been called out, I'm not going to say that the guy's guilty or
no,
or what, but
were crazy things happening back then the way they seem to be now?
It was pretty wild back then too. It was pretty wild, but I don't know that that the wrestlers disrespected women.
Okay.
I especially the women wrestlers that were traveling with the guys. We had a lot of respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean,
so you say maybe the old school wrestlers had respect for the industry and had respect for their partners, where it may be different now, where this respect isn't the same.
Or is it just more magnified now because of social media that every last stone becomes unturned? Is it that?
I think that's it. Just like everything is going on right now, they catch it on video. You can't talk your way out of it. It's a different world.
Tito Santana, fortunate, smart, or both to avoid the pitfalls that this business obviously carries, whether it's drugs, whether it's women, whether it's whatever it may be? Fortunate, smart, or a combination of both that you were able to steer clear all those years?
Well, I think I was very fortunate, and coming from a divorced family, my parents got divorced, I never wanted my family to go through what I went through as a kid, and coming from a migrant worker working on the fields for $1 an hour, I saw how hard it was to make a buck, and then when I started making some good money, and I'd see some of the guys just blowing money on the road, and I used to think to myself, God, they're spending $100. Well, you have to pay taxes on that $100, so it's going to cost you another $30. And a lot of the guys, as you guys know, a lot of the guys, are hurting. They are having a hard time making ends meet now.
Where do you stand on how Vince should take care of guys then? I mean, is it really Vince's responsibility to take care of guys who didn't manage their money correctly like you did, or?
Well, I don't know that it's Vince's responsibility, but, I do know that we were underpaid back then, but I also don't think that no matter how much he would have paid us, some of these guys would have still ended up, broke. I think if he would have paid me more, I think I'd be a little bit better off, myself, because I wasn't blowing my money and throwing it away. But I don't think, it would have been nice if we would have had a union, for something to fall back on. But
would you have had the guts if it had been brought to you? Let's do this. Would you have said, okay, fine, I'll take your side?
That's a really good question, because you're a top player, right? And you're risking a lot.
You absolutely
If you were to go, you risking your whole career for the betterment of others, would you have done that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys know the story, but, right before WrestleMania 1, I believe, Jesse the Body had, a lot of the guys all fired up about getting a union, and and we needed Hulk. And everybody was all gung ho. We were all in. We were all gonna, we were all in. If we could have done it then would have been the only time that I think would have been able to do it. Before WrestleMania 1, and all of a sudden, they said, well, Hulk's not in. So without Hulk,
You might have bankrupted McMahon, though, if you would have did that, too. You could have finished him.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what would have happened?
He had put everything on the line for WrestleMania 1. That would have been a definite problem. Yeah. That would have been a problem. Tito, there's a lot of things going on, obviously, nowadays with behind the scenes, and everybody's peeling behind the curtain, and you've got the show, you know, Wrestling from the Dark Side. They've been doing a lot of specials. One of the uncomfortable episodes, of course, but tragic, was surrounding Nancy Argentina. I believe at the time you were Intercontinental Champ when this awful thing happened with Nancy Argentina. Did you hear anything about it at the time that you can disclose for us, or your personal feelings on how bizarre this must have been? And what is your take on Jimmy, the late, great Jimmy Snuka, who we had the pleasure of meeting? What's your take on him as a person, and what were your feelings during when that was going on? I know it's not an easy question, but I'd appreciate if you could share.
Are you talking about the girl that...
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't there.
Correct.
It was my first day back. It was...
really?
May 10th, 1983, and this is my second time around coming back.
Back to torture us. I'm sorry,
right?
Sir. Go on.
And I did my first TV taping on May 10th because it's not hard to forget. You know, it's hard to because it was my birthday.
Oh.
So I wake up in the morning on May 11th, and then I heard that this girl had died. You know, but nobody was saying anything. So
right.
You know, it was like nobody would talk about it. So how am I going to judge Jimmy if you know I never asked him?
I mean, but did you know Jimmy well?
No.
Okay, so
No.
I can also tell Tito as a person wouldn't exactly go around the bar fishing. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
I'd be like, yo.
I hear you, but you know, you always hear that story like, oh, he was the sweetest guy. I can't imagine that he could ever do anything like that.
He was sweet.
But then again, if you didn't know him, you didn't know him, right?
Right. I mean, it's not like I was hanging around with Jimmy, and you know, I know that before he died, that they were going to try to reopen that case, and you know, and then they couldn't bring him back because he was really ill at the time.
It never would have happened. We met Jimmy right when that was happening. He was not capable of taking the stand.
Right.
There's no way. No way.
The guy was a nice guy. You know, if you were around Jimmy, I'm sure you guys, you know,
yeah,
very likable guy, very nice guy. You know, but you know, I really can't. I don't have anything to share that
Understood.
Any knowledge.
Well, with that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh, seen every Thursday, produced out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma, New York. And we have the Hall of Famer, superstar Tito Santana in studio. Tito, how's it going so far, all right? We hitting you with some tough questions, or what are we doing?
No, so far so good.
All
I
right,
mean,
good.
that's why you guys are #1. You know, you have a great show,
Thank
and
you,
you know, you don't You don't beat around the bushes. You come right at me.
I love when you guys put us over, bro. It makes me feel so good.
Wait a minute. About that arm drag back in 1982.
All right, well, here's another one for you. Ready? Tom Cole. Tom Cole was a ring boy in 1985. He's a gopher. You recognize that name?
I don't like where this is going.
Tom Cole?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Who's that?
Pat Patterson, Vice President of World Wrestling Federation. Terry Garvin resigned because of the ring boy scandal. Oh. I think you were around during that time.
Yes, I was.
What do you know about that, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, again, that was not the crew that I was running around with.
Good thing.
And you'd hear a lot of whispers and stuff, but I'm not gonna comment because it's hearsay.
Right.
But obviously, Pat Patterson was gay, and
he was.
He was hanging around with all the boys loved him. He was a great guy. He was one of the boys. It's not like there was anything in the locker rooms where
But can I ask you a question, right? So obviously, every guy that comes in here says what a brilliant guy he was, what a great guy he was.
No doubt.
But then you hear all this other side stuff, right? Piper had an issue with him, from what I understand. Again, hearsay, not saying it's factual.
Is it?
You're a pretty stand-up guy. You're a stand-up guy.
Absolutely.
At some point, do you have like a push and pull with yourself? Like, hey, I like the guy, but
Did you ever wonder? Let me put it this way: did you ever wonder what the basic everyday wrestling fan wonders when it comes to Pat Patterson rumors? Where there's smoke, is there fire? Because there's so many rumors about the things that Pat's done behind the scenes, and they're all very uncomfortable. Any thoughts on any of that with Pat, or?
No. I mean, God, I like.
You're just fortunate enough to not have seen stuff.
Right.
Obviously,
I didn't hang around with Pat, and maybe because I was such a straight guy that a lot of the shit that was going on wasn't shared with me. I mean.
Well, fortunately, you were never approached.
No, I do know that Jimmy, God, what's his name? Tag team partner.
Jimmy Powers.
Jimmy Powers. I know he told me that he was approached, but he really didn't get into details even.
Well, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with a person being approached, right? They're attracted to him. They say, "Hey, I would like that." There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's when you take advantage or force something, which supposedly happened in this ring boy situation where people were afraid for their jobs and they were told to do. Again, hearsay, not saying it's factual. I mean, you're a good-looking guy, still a good-looking guy. You must have been hit on a regular basis, right?
Not by Pat Patterson.
Oh my God! Or Tito.
No.
Holy moly!
All right.
Do you consider yourself fortunate, smart, or both in that case? Oh, sorry. Anyway,
all of the above.
Yeah. Thoughts on Pat Patterson as a wrestler, just from the nerdy end.
Well, I mean, he was a great worker.
Yeah.
That's why. I mean, and he would. They would. I would just hear, and they would joke. Just don't let him go behind you. So if you work with Patterson, don't let him go behind you. But if you wrestle Pat Patterson, I mean, I think he was one of the key guys that helped Bob Backlund, learn how to work it, a little bit.
So I'm going to throw this at you then, since we're going that way. You've been in many wrestling organizations.
Oh yeah.
You've always been a top guy.
Oh yeah.
There's money when you're a top guy.
Oh yeah.
Not asking names, man, woman, or beast. Were you ever approached saying, "Hey, if you want a serious push in any federation, don't have to name it. I'm asking you to give me some kind of something."
No.
Thank God.
I was never approached. I mean, I know I wasn't a wrestling fan. I started in 1977 in Tampa, Florida. Jim Barnett, who also happened to be gay, owned Georgia also, and he brought me into Georgia. But
were these guys openly gay, or was it kind of closeted gay at that point?
I think it was closet. I never
Because
saw.
it had to be tough in a man's industry like this to even come out of the closet.
Everybody knew that that they were gay, but nobody, like, I don't know. I don't know if
you're saying some very interesting stuff, though. We know what's going on in today's society, right?
Right.
And you're talking about older school, right? From what I'm getting, treated women with respect as teammates. Treated people who had different sexual tendencies with respect. Something to be said. You're making some really clear statements here, or maybe the downfall of what's happening in society right now.
Maybe. I mean, it is a different world, I guess. It's without a doubt.
Do you enjoy social media? Because I mean, you use it very well, and you by the way, you use social media with class and dignity. But do you enjoy the tool of social media? Has it helped your career as far as continuing to remain in the eyes of the fans publicly?
I think it has helped. I started. I'm not very computer savvy, tech savvy, but I've learned. I got into Twitter, and before you know it, somebody hacked into my account, and all of a sudden there's all kinds of porn stuff in my account, and I ended up dropping it. I didn't know how to drop it, how to delete it, and this guy, smart ass, says, "Sure, all you have to do is hit a button." Well, it's all you have to do, but you have to find that button. If you're not computer, tech savvy, where the hell is that button at?
Well, I think what people are afraid to try new things, and then once you get your groove, it's not as hard as you think it is. And
right.
They just your opinion. Were you the greatest baby face in pro wrestling history?
Wow.
Well,
boy, you're up there.
I'm not going to say that I was the greatest baby face. Steamboat was, a great baby face.
There's only a few of you that have never turned heel. I mean, and you're one of them. So,
but I think that I had a lot of control of a baby face. I knew how to sell. I knew how to make a comeback. I had fire coming out of the yin yang. And I gave the people what they wanted. I think my style was a little different than Ricky Steamboat's. Bret Hart was a good baby face. Bret Hart had a different style than me. So I don't know that I was better than they, but I guarantee you they were not better than me either. I put myself, on the same scale as far as knowledgeable and understanding the business and understanding the role of a baby face and how to get a match over. I'm as good as it gets. I was as good as it got.
Still are. With that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monty Nefaro, seen here every Thursday out of Indie Music TV in Ronkonkoma. We are honored to have WWE Hall of Famer Mr. Tito Santana in studio.
Tito, I wanted to ask you, since we were just on the subject of baby faces, did you come across during your time Quick Draw Rick McGraw, who I find, his tragic, he passed on young. I thought he was a tremendous baby face. Any memories of Rick and where he might have been able to go if he had not been cut short?
Well, I mean, I met Rick, I believe it was in 1978.
Oh.
We were in the same territory.
Okay.
And, he wasn't a very big man.
No.
He wasn't very tall.
No.
But, man, could the guy work?
Fans loved him.
Yeah.
In those Channel 9 days when
Right.
he was, fighting on Channel 9 on Saturday nights, I thought he was as over. And as a matter of fact, didn't Skoland take him out to the ring at one point?
Yes.
He was being connected to Bob Backlund. I really thought Rick McGraw, for a little guy, had the big heart that the fans absolutely adored and was a tremendous baby face.
Yes, but I didn't really get to know him very well and run with him.
Right.
But I mean,
I could see you two being a team.
Sure was.
Why not?
Sure was tragic when he died at a very young age.
Yeah. You discussed how you wanted to be a heel. What did you want your gimmick to be, and how come you never wore a heel? What did you want to be as a heel? How would Tito Santana have been as a bad guy? I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, I think I would have. I think I would have been kind of like the same style with a little bit of a twist that Mr. Wonderful had.
Okay.
You know, a wrestler, a sneak, but he could keep up with the best and just a little on the cocky side. You know, irritate the fans by being a little cocky, and I think. Being a Mexican would have been a little easier than even Mr. Wonderful had.
Would you have pushed that? Would you have pushed that angle?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I would have.
He's no dummy. Instant heat.
You had many successful tag team runs. What was your favorite tag team that you worked with?
Well, without a doubt, Rick Martel, Strike Force. You know, we were a really good tag team because both of us could, had the same style. When I was teamed up with Ivan Putski, that was also good. But you had strong guy and the wrestler, and I think I did a good job, contributing to the team what I had to contribute. I accepted the fact that I was the weak link. And he would be the one that come in and save me, and I was a good seller.
Who wasn't the weak link when you worked with Putski, right?
Right.
He was always the guy.
Look at Andre taking bumps. Here
Yeah.
comes Putski. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, but you monitor and you adjust.
I thought you complimented Putski excellently for the time period. Wrestling was getting faster and faster in the ring as the 80s continued into the 90s
Right.
into today. So I thought that at the time you were the perfect combo for what wrestling tag team was back in those times.
Yeah, and I think we got over. I wish they would have given us more time, but it wasn't very long.
Right. And then you had, what was it, with the Samoans, correct?
Yeah, the Samoans came in,
Right.
and
Oh,
God,
boy.
I used to go out and watch them wrestle, and and I used to say, man, I knew that we were going to be working on them, and
killed.
their stuff that they did, in the ring, it looked awful. I mean, those guys looked like killers, you know. And
Tony,
I was nervous as hell.
Tony Atlas was in studio a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the time where him and Rocky Johnson won the belt from the Samoans. But I asked him if the chair was gigged that they hit him with, the one, I think, Alpha. And he said no, it was a straight wood chair that dude took over the head.
Oh yeah, they were animals. Those guys.
That's crazy.
So when you did finally get into the ring with them, did you find the experience to be as physically hard, or did they have what sometimes is termed in the business as working with them as soft hands? Were they rough?
No, I mean.
So it was easy.
It was so easy that you used to say, "How in the hell can I sell this?" You don't even feel it.
Right.
But
not even the headbutts.
Not even the headbutts.
The hair probably was the illusion. Wow.
And they'd hit you on the head with those chops and kick you and you wouldn't feel anything, and then you say, "How?"
That's great.
It used to be like when I watch them, it looks so awesome and killing. Like they're killing their opponents. And I say, I'm going to have to take that. And then when you get in there, how do I sell this? I don't feel it.
Well, you
We're
did.
exposing the business, but you watch it on film and it looks so real.
It looks awesome. How about your memories when you were with Martel working against the High Flyers?
In Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like a little Vern Gagne country here.
Yeah. They were over, But we got over too, and the fans wanted us to beat them. You know, I think they were.
Were they pissed?
So they wanted you to beat the High Flyers.
The fans wanted us to beat the High Flyers.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we had. I can't tell you how many hour Broadways we had. You know, our matches.
So you had Broadways and tag team matches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know, the people were really with it. You know, and we finished the angle that we had, and then I went to Atlanta.
Let me ask you: did you take Greg seriously, or were you just like, all right, he's the kid, he's the man's son, just gotta get along?
You know, until I got into the ring with him, I didn't have a lot of respect because he didn't have the body, he didn't have. But then
What are you saying? He had tennis legs?
He had tennis legs.
I've been saying that for years. Anyway,
he had no body, but you know.
He's a good wrestler, though,
the
right?
psychology in the ring that he
He's a
had
good wrestler,
was
right?
unbelievable.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
And he had, you know, he had a lot of fire also. You know, and but when I first got there and I saw him wrestle against Big John Studd, and John Studd is taking hip tosses from him, and you know,
wow.
And I used to say to myself,
wow,
you know, but the guy would make you believe the stuff that he was doing. You know, as wimpy as he looked, you know, his work, his work was you know, next to none.
I heard he wanted to turn heel at one point. That would have been interesting to see him like dye his hair blonde, grow a beard, and act all snarly all of a sudden. You think he could have pulled that off? He seemed pretty.
I have no doubt that he could have pulled it off. You know, because you know, he was. He was writing the show with his dad, you know.
Right,
so you know, he
right. You couldn't have been that shocked when you got in the ring with him. He was trained by his father. I mean,
right.
It's hereditary, right?
Yeah.
In his case,
right.
In his case,
and Vern was a great worker. I mean, I saw Vern. I don't know how old he was when I got there in 1981, 82, but I saw him work against Nick Bockwinkel, and you know. He was still over like $1 million there in Minnesota.
The man sold out for decades. The main event heavyweight champion of the world in his region. How bad could he be?
Right.
He had to be like, you know, at least a Lou Thez of sorts.
Well, you know, if I'm not mistaken, did he wrestle in the Olympics? I know he wrestled in college.
He
and,
might,
you know,
he might have had to go. He
Yeah.
might have had to go.
No, Vern was an Olympic wrestler.
Right. I mean, so
Greg sold cars.
Right.
Would you play Greg sold cars? What, like an AMC Pacer? What
Well,
are
I
you
don't
talking
know, yeah,
about?
something like that. Use Chevy.
Speaking of training and not potty training, you were obviously trained by the great Hiro Matsuda, who didn't just train you. He, of course, trained Hulk Hogan. What was he like in person, the great Hiro, and memories of him?
Well, when I first got into Tampa, and I found out that I was going to be trained by Hiro Matsuda, the first couple of days I just worked out with Barry Orton and his father, Bob Orton's father, senior, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
You know, would come in and you know, was helping us out. And he was watching Hiro Matsuda. I didn't know Hiro Matsuda. You know, he was watching us. And Barry, coming from a wrestling family, you know, he was way ahead of me, but he wanted to be a heel, and he was strutting in the ring already, you know, and he was just breaking in himself. So Hiro Matsuda didn't appreciate that.
Oh.
You know, he told me, he says, don't listen to what he's doing. You know, he doesn't even know. He still went behind the ears, and now he's doing high spots and dancing around. And he says, you need to learn. He says, there's 7 takedowns. Learn the takedowns, and you can have a match with anybody. And I'm talking about takedowns, headlock, taking over, arm drag, fireman carry, go behind, you know, hip toss, single leg dive, double leg dive. He said 7 backdrops, work on the 7 takedowns, work on 7 takedowns. And that's all I worked on, 7 takedowns. And the first match that I had was just, I used that, and I was able to get by, you know, in my first match.
Who taught Tito Santana how to throw a punch, though? See, this is where I always wonder, how do they teach you how to clock each other? I mean, how do you go about that?
Well, I think I had one of the best punches in the business.
That's why I'm asking you.
You know, and my sons tell me that, you know, you couldn't see through your punches.
How much contact would you make? I mean, how much contact are we talking? The art of throwing a professional wrestling punch.
Not much. You know,
is your fist tight when you're throwing it, or
no,
you loose?
It's loose.
Your fist is loose,
and you almost you throw your fingers, you know, in the front. But
interesting. Okay,
that's the hardest thing that I learned. You know, and Greg Gagne told me, don't throw a punch to the head. You know, I didn't throw a punch till I was 5 years in the business.
Really?
He says, start with the stomach. You know, throw the punches in the stomach. That way, if you land it, you're not going to really hurt somebody. But I'll never forget, I was in a battle royal, and Harley Race grabbed me, and he said, come over here, kid. You're going to learn, tonight you're going to learn how to throw a punch. And he backed me up into the ropes, and he says, okay, throw a punch. And I threw a punch, and I was nervous as hell. I mean, Harley Race was a killer.
Yeah.
I mean, I was scared to death to hurt him because he could kill you.
Right.
So I threw the punch, and he says, lay it in, pussy. And, you know, so then when I started throwing the punch without being afraid of potatoing somebody, when you laid it in hard, we used to call it a potato. I think once you get over the fear of potatoing somebody, after that night, you know, it changed my like I could throw a punch through a nose with my right or my left, you know, hand.
In a way, you were set free once you were comfortable with the art of throwing punches effectively.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Flair in his 30 for 30 said he used to have a string, and he worked on that string for days and weeks and months.
A string?
Punching a string as close as he could get to it, so he could get, you know.
Right.
It's an art form.
And I used to do the same thing. I used to hang a cup from the ceiling and, you know, punch the cup.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
But nothing helped like when Harley Race took me and, you know, says, lay it in, you pussy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was not afraid to potato anybody anymore.
Let me ask you, did you ever hurt anybody in the ring?
No.
Were you ever hurt?
Well, Burr's the Barber Beefcake, which was never a very good worker.
Okay. He wasn't?
We were in Atlanta. We were in Atlanta with the WWE, and we were working against him in a tag match. I forgot who my partner was, and he ran my head into the apron, and I mean, I got like 14 stitches on my forehead. It's just not knowing how to work. You know how to be light.
Yeah.
You know, it's an art to and I would always tell the guys that I worked, like Greg was pretty stiff, and I would tell Greg, I said, Greg, you don't have to convince me. I believe you. I know you're tough. I believe you. Convince the fans, you know, and do it without hurting me.
Yeah.
How about a fist from Greg Valentine? How would that feel compared to? Was that light and airy? I can't picture it.
No, I mean, Greg would hit you in the chest, you know, and he would lay it in, and the chops, boom, lay him in. But, you know, I've got pretty good, my hands are a lot bigger than Greg's, you know.
Oh, boy.
So there was always a comeback, you know.
Well, we were saying last time you were here, there was a picture of you and Hogan. You were as big as Hogan, dude. You're a big guy.
Yeah, I was, Hogan wasn't much taller than me. They promoted him at 6'8", you know.
Yeah, well. Listen, every great man is a great woman. Tell me about your wife a little bit. Oh.
Well, my wife is a very intelligent woman. You know, she was very supportive. She raised 3 kids. You know, I like to take credit for my kids. You know, my kids are fantastic. You know, my oldest son's a lawyer. My middle son graduated from Princeton, and my little guy, you know, works for a tech company in New York. And
wow.
You know, they all have masters, and you know. She did a great job, you know, and she was there for me whenever I would come home. She was there for me, you know.
So, obviously, famous guy, wrestling, the ring rats that are around. Was your wife jealous of, like, all the ring rats hanging around? I mean, how did that stress out your marriage?
She never questioned me. She never questioned me. She was a good woman. You know, she trusted me. She never questioned me. And
who were your friends in the business during those days? Who did you travel with? Is there 3 or 4 wrestlers that Tito Santana could say, these were my boys, these were the guys I traveled, these are the guys I trust? Are there a few guys you can name that you're very fond of over the years that you traveled with?
Mr. Wonderful was my best friend in the business.
Okay.
You know, I traveled with him.
It's amazing to me. You know, on screen, you're like Mr. Nice Guy Reba, and he's a bastard on screen. Right. That's amazing.
But, you know, he was a heel, I was a baby face,
Right.
and we weren't competing with each other.
Right. Right.
You know, the baby faces, I wasn't going to stab him in the back. He wasn't going to stab me in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of them. I used to like to travel with Bill Eadie and Barry Darso.
Okay.
The Bushwhackers. You know.
Traveling with the Bushwhackers, that must have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hung out with guys that I knew weren't going to
get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
How about Brett Armstrong? What did he mean to your career?
You're talking about Brett Armstrong in Atlanta, Georgia?
Atlanta, Georgia, yeah. Bullet Bob's son.
Yeah. Well, I again, it was early in my career. I don't know if it was in '81 when I met him. I think it was in '81, my second time in Atlanta. And talk about a kid who had a lot of talent. But the problem with him, you know, there was a group in Atlanta, Georgia that were doing all kinds of pills and stuff, you know, and just partying like there was no tomorrow. And you know, he was just beginning to party, and then I left Georgia, and then I heard he got worse and worse and worse. And I heard he passed away. I don't know what he passed away from, you know, what caused him to die.
Right.
You know, I really don't know.
Thoughts on Bob, his father?
Bob was his father, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean thoughts on him though. Any thoughts on him?
his father?
Yeah,
No.
both of them in the ring in general, they were technicians.
Oh, his father was a great guy. I mean, and he was a great worker too, and a great baby face, and his father was pretty straight guy. He wasn't doing drugs and stuff, and they were in the same territory, and that's why I couldn't understand how. But you know, friends are a big influence. You know, he started hanging around with different guys, and they led him astray. You know.
Friends like Orndorff obviously came to know your family, I'm assuming, over the years and stuff like that. So he's a true friend.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Mikey?
Undertaker just recently announced his retirement this week, I believe. You defeated him in Mexico, right?
In Spain.
In Spain.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you know that this guy had the goods and he was going to be one of the greatest wrestlers of all time?
Yes.
How?
Just the charisma that he had, and a big guy, and he was getting over like $1 million. When I beat him in Barcelona, I think it's the time when they were prepping me to go for be the world champ. Because that's why I found that out later.
Right.
And he could work with the little guys and he could work with the big guys. He had it all. I mean,
was he physically soft-handed too, where you wouldn't feel
Yeah.
like you needed a giant Band-Aid after the match?
No, he very, very easy guy.
Hulkamania or The Undertaker? Which one, in your opinion, is Vince's greatest creation?
I always say Hulk was like Elvis, to our business.
That's fair.
At the right time, Hulk, was right there. Vince created him. Hulk wasn't the greatest worker, but Vince sure knew how to push him, and got him over, and the fans just ate it up.
Do you feel Hogan gets a bad rap as a worker? Do you feel that because some folks say he's awful. I don't believe that. I always felt that he was at the very least serviceable. Do you feel that Hogan was a bad wrestler in the ring?
No, I think he became a pretty good wrestler, but towards the end, he because he worked heel, he also learned how to lead a match. He was a baby face and heel, so he had seen both sides of the working. I never experienced being a heel,
right?
But I knew what a heel did, and I would feed the heel, and like I learned this from, Mr. Perfect and Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful was to me, one of the greatest heels ever. And he would tell me, he says, Tito, when a baby face makes a comeback, the baby face should just stay in the same spot and the heel bump and be feeding you. You don't have, the baby face shouldn't have to move. The heel just keep, when it's time for the heel to bump, they just keep coming in, whether it's a slam or a drop kick or, a hip toss, they just keep coming to you and, they just keep bumping and until it's time, to go home or leave the ring to get the people really pissed off at you.
Is that why the heel usually controls the match? Because they're going to take all the bumps?
Well, not necessarily take all the bumps, but a good heel
will dictate the flow.
Okay. A good heel. To me, our business is very simple. The baby face out wrestles the heel, so the heel has to cheat to take over. Then it's time for the baby face to sell, and not everybody knows how to sell. You got to sell without dying. If you just lay flat dead, you got to listen to the crowd and let when the people start coming, you got to start coming up, and then the heel cheat. And then you make little short comebacks and they stop you, little short comebacks and they stop you. But when you make the big comeback, the heel's got to feed you, and if you have a lot of fire, then a good heel will make you look like you have more fire than you really have.
So last time you were in studio, you were talking about when Savage first came and how you had to kind of teach him the ways of the Northeast. Call me crazy on this, but I've watched you interview a kabillion times, right?
Okay.
I felt like you weren't a big fan of Savage, the way you came off. I felt like you weren't overly impressed by him.
No. Savage became one of the best hands in the WWE.
Sure.
Sure. He came in working in Kentucky with his father. They owned the territory. And, like when we first started, I had matches with him in Georgia in 1977. We used to just do stuff to take bumps just to take bumps. We give me a bed drop, throw me up as high as you can, and a lot of times we didn't get the response because like Mr. Fuji taught me later, there's a reason. If you can throw one drop kick at the right time and get a heck of a response, or throw 10 drop kicks and don't get it, if they're not in the right time. So Macho Man hadn't worked with top talent. The way Morocco, Patera, Stud, I had worked with a lot of top talent, and I think Randy Savage was still working, what we used to call jabroni matches, doing stuff for no rhyme or reason. And when he came into New York, before he got Elizabeth, he wasn't getting any response, in the arenas.
Do you think he gets over and has the career he has without Elizabeth?
I don't think so.
Wow. Boy, that's rough.
Yeah. I mean,
rough to me.
They were a tandem. They
the way he worked Elizabeth into the program.
It was amazing.
Was amazing.
It was.
His interviews became, I don't know, he was almost copied Hulk Hogan to a little bit with the leotards and the gimmicks, and he kind of copied Hulk Hogan a lot, but his interviews got really, really good. And,
oh my God!
He did an interview with me, and he's talking about he's going to go after the title match, and he's talking about the world title, and I said, Randy, you're going to become the Intercontinental Champion. You got to make this belt the most important belt there is. Why are you talking about the world title? Because at the time, they didn't tell him you're going to be the world champion.
Right.
They put the world title because he got over. So then,
because he got over being the Intercontinental Champion.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So, I think I taught Randy Savage a lot. But Don Morocco taught me a lot, That's the way we used to do it.
Was Savage receptive to your comments?
I think so.
Okay.
You might have been an exception because I heard Randy was pretty tunnel visioned as to what he wanted to do and what he expected to have out of a match.
All right. So I'm sorry, we're almost out of time.
Oh, okay.
Pharaoh's going to have the last question with you.
I am?
And then, yeah, you're on. So.
All right, here we go. Okay, Mr. Santana, I want to ask you, where do you feel you would rank? Yeah, this is impossible, but go ahead, give it a shot. Where do you feel you would rank yourself?
Wait a minute. I want you to think about this question. This is the last question
Right.
for a Hall of Famer, Tito Santana.
Right.
Is this the question that you want to go to bed on?
You want me to throw the script out and just do what I do every week?
Exactly.
Let me just ask you
I just want to
to
make sure that this is going to be the final question. We never
Okay.
know when we might see the guy again.
That's true, too. All right, then answer me 2 questions.
No, you get
No,
one.
he's going to answer me 2.
All right.
Make it quick. Number 1, who do you believe is the greatest professional wrestler of all time? Give me 1 name. And number 2, where do you rank yourself on such same list?
Well,
So there.
I would say The Rock
Wow.
has to be
Wow. Wow.
the top. I mean, I think The Rock was a great worker, great interviewer. I mean, he had it all.
What puts him above the Hogans? Because I know that's probably your number 2.
Well, I just think when I used to watch, and The Rock took it to a different level. You know, where he had the fans, you know,
going back
at the tip of his
Shit.
tongue. You know, he'd say something and they, you know,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think he was one of the first ones that did that.
Magnetic response. from
Right,
the crowd.
yeah.
Right. And where do you rank yourself on this list if you were forced to?
Well,
Put yourself in that PWI
as
top.
far as working, you know, I'm as good a babyface worker as any of them.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get the push that these guys got. So I know that I didn't get as over as Hulk or as over as The Rock or as over as Steve Austin, because you only got over as much as they pushed you.
Of course.
You know, every time I had to do a job to get somebody over, you know, they would bring you down. They didn't see The Rock, the Hulk, you know, the Undertaker, the who's the other guy that God.
Austin? Oh, Kane?
No. The one that beat the Hulk for the title. The Warrior, Ultimate Warrior. You know, those guys weren't doing jobs, you know. So obviously they got over with the fans.
Right.
Macho Man, you know, got pushed, you know, to the limits, you know, and eventually got over as good as anybody got over, you know. So it's Vince had total control of how much you were going to get over.
Okay. So it's a tough time out there for everybody. Do you have a message for the people watching and fans about, you know, what kind of message you have for people out there?
Well, the message that I have is we're so lucky to have so many wrestling fans all over the world. You know, keep watching, keep supporting the wrestlers, keep supporting the wrestlers in the independent market, you know, because a lot of these guys, you know, that's where you're going to create the new stars. We're living in a hard time right now with the virus. You know, keep the distance, wear a mask. You know, don't get the virus if you can possibly help it. There's a lot of people who are fighting it, and they think it's against their the rights. You know, well, you can have all the rights in the world that you want, but if you get that virus, you're going to wish that you hadn't gotten the virus. I can guarantee you that. And I want to thank all the fans for continued support of Tito Santana.
And one more pop on your book.
Don't call me Chico. Just go to all you have to do is go to I post it, you know, quite often. So
it's on Amazon too, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You know, you can find it.
Well, I'm gonna read it. So I want to thank Hall of Famer Tito Santana for coming in studio and for being a guest, Tito. One of our sponsors, Good Fucking Wine, is giving you a free bottle of wine for being on Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. So I'll send you that information. So I want to thank you again, Monty.
You can get lit and watch the replay.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Monty DeFaro can be seen on YouTube, Facebook Live on the Monty DeFaro page, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Channel 115 every Tuesday from 8:30 to 9 p.m. And for early risers, Saturday 6:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Also catch us on RTF Sports Network on Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. and on Monday from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. We want to again thank you, Mr. Santana, for coming in studio. And Jimmy, I want to thank you for another wonderful broadcast.
Oh, you're very welcome, partner. Looking forward to next week.
Absolutely. You've been watching Monty and the Pharaoh.
This is the Pharaoh. Until next week, later.